The Philadelphia Eagles gave Jalen Hurts a big-time contract extension. How does that impact their draft? What positions of need do they need to address? And is wide receiver one of them? We'll discuss it next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout with the Draft Network and your favorite and local running back guru. And as always, I got my boy, Keith Sanchez, Mr. LSU, with me at all times. You can find him on Twitter at The Talent Code. Keep talk to him, baby.
What's going on, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst with the Draft Network in 2019 national champ. Yes, those LSU Tigers, man. But DP, you know why we're here, man. We're here to bring the listeners championship content surrounding the NFL draft, prospects, philosophies, roster management. DP, that keyword roster management. You want to know why? Because the Philadelphia Eagles paid Jalen Hurts, man. So now you have to manage that roster. DP, I want to get some key takeaways from you on how you feel about, what the Eagles front office did paying Jalen Hurts, and how do they have to maneuver through this draft, the next couple drafts, and, maybe what positions, DP, that you can sacrifice maybe on a football field, not being able to pay premium dollar.
Nah, Keith, 100%, man. When I saw the news, I made sure I called you immediately. As soon as I saw the report, I said, man, we got to talk about this today, because 5 years, $255 million I'm looking at here, and I believe it's $179.3 million in guarantees, Keith. And for me, it's a team understanding the assignment. You want to get ahead of the curve, Keith. So that was one of my biggest takeaways, is the Philadelphia Eagles understood Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert are all sitting there waiting on new deals. What you don't want to be, if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, is the fourth person or the fourth team on that list to be the last one to give their guy the contract. They said, no, I'm going to set the standard, give Jalen Hurts his deal. And it's also a good faith move, understanding, man, Jalen Hurts, you've improved so much since coming into the league. We view you as a franchise quarterback. And Keith, our slogan, actions speak louder than words. So it's like you could tell Jalen Hurts that to his face, but does the money match up? And I think getting almost $180 million guaranteed, I think that does. That was really the big takeaway for me, Keith, is that this team understood they have a franchise quarterback. They didn't just say it to the media, say it to the fans, or say it to the quarterback himself. They went ahead and paid him as well.
Yeah, I appreciated the precision, right? Like, this wasn't one of those things where there was, Adam Schefter and Phil Yates, and there's no knock to those guys. I'm just talking about how they went about the business, right? Like, the Philadelphia Eagles sat down with his agent, Nicole Lynn, right, who's one of the best agents in an entire this sports industry, period. And they got the job done, right? Like, let's just figure out these numbers. Let's not put stuff in the media. We don't have time to go back and forth. It was really precise, and it was the exact opposite of the Lamar Jackson situation, right? Like, the polar opposite. It was, we have good faith in you. And I thought about it from that perspective, DP, that Jalen Hurts, this is his second year being a starter, right? Because the first year, he played solid again, right? That was before they had A.J. Brown, though. They went to the playoffs, got boat raced by the Tampa Bay Bucks. Then this year, this is when they made it to the Super Bowl. Now, my question is this, like, I'm looking at it from a perspective of, like you said, because we talk somewhat roster management and just, philosophies, right? Why was the Philadelphia Eagles front office way more comfortable with throwing Jalen Hurts, or giving Jalen Hurts his earned money? Let me rephrase that, right? Giving Jalen Hurts his earned money versus the Baltimore Ravens front office, and it still has to be a lot of back and forth, and Lamar Jackson has played at a higher level for a longer period of time. So when you can't help but think of Lamar Jackson when you hit a Jalen Hurts contract, right? So that was the thought that I had.
No, and that's a good thought. to have, Keith, because it's like, well, what's the holdup, Baltimore? This guy was a young MVP for your team. He's improved every year. Yes, the past 2 seasons he's been hurt, but he got hurt in the pocket, not as a runner. He got hurt standing in the pocket as people want him to do and be a pocket quarterback, right? So he got hurt being traditionally in the spot that Tom Brady got hurt in the pocket. He got torn ACL in the pocket. He didn't move. He didn't run. He just got hit low, right? We've seen quarterbacks get hurt in the pocket before. So, like, Baltimore for me is just, guys, like, you look at Philly, Keith, and I think to your thought, Philly just understands, like, man, look at the history. We've had Donovan McNabb, we've had Michael Vick, right? They have Kevin Kolb at one point. They, who was Carson Wentz. And then going from Carson Wentz to Jalen Hurts, for one, that was a change in the locker room. Right? Like, from talking to people that's been in that locker room, it wasn't a very kosher situation when Carson Wentz was there. And, like, Jalen Hurts comes in as a natural leader, Keith, brings everything to the table, and it's like, okay, I want to pay this guy. Not only that, but then he improved his pay. So the Baltimore Ravens fumbled the bag on this, Keith.
Yeah, I wonder if this signals too, because, obviously it's the draft podcast, right? And we're talking draft. Mm-hmm. Does this signal and bode well for Anthony Richardson and next level, right? Hendon Hooker. Like, that's because we talk about two quarterbacks and Anthony Richardson and Hendon Hooker. People talked about accuracy issues, whether it's upper body mechanics and lower body mechanics, right? And then now you've seen a guy like Jalen Hurts into the NFL, have success in the NFL, and ultimately get paid, right, to be their franchise guys. So I wonder if the NFL is signaling to us that, man, these guys have more of a chance than ever, right? You're talking about Anthony Richardson, Hendon Hooker, and, the couple more dual threat-ish type quarterbacks in this draft, but those are the two most polarizing. Even Will Levis, throwing Will Levis' name in there, right? Like, just guys that they passing game-wise is not all the way there, but we do believe in these guys, and we believe that if we develop them, get the job done, we're willing to invest a lot of resources into them.
100%. And I think that's the point right there, Keith, is just being willing to help develop these young men into what they could become. Not so much drafting them for what they are coming out. Keith, I've said this to you. Shout out to our boy Ray Garvin with Destination Devi. And he knows I was not a big fan of Jalen Hurts coming out of Oklahoma and Alabama, right? But one thing I've learned throughout time is that there's a path for success for every draft prospect. It's all about the team to put them on that path and the player working his way up that ladder. And Jalen Hurts, with his work ethic and everything else, yes, and we talked about in our very first episode taking over this show back on February 13th, right after the Super Bowl, that he is the poster child. It's not Josh Allen no more, right? Because Josh Allen is such an anomaly in terms of height, weight, speed, athlete, all that type of stuff. People looked at him as like, you can't use him as a comp anymore. Jalen Hurts is the comp that you can use for the Hendon Hookers, the Will Levises, the Anthony Richards, these toolsy, kind of raw quarterbacks that have everything in terms of the physical tool set and physical attributes. You just got to get them there in terms of consistency. And, man, I'm happy for Jalen Hurts. I'm happy for the Eagles. Now, Keith, this is going to impact their draft. It has to.
Yeah, no, it definitely will, man. It definitely will. I think there's some premium positions because this is a team that was, I don't say active this offseason in free agency period, but they did a lot of re-signing, right? Like, we thought Darius Slay was leaving. They brought Darius Slay back. They brought James Bradbury back. They lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to the Detroit Lions, even though there were rumors that they were willing to pay more money, right? There was more money out there from the Philadelphia Eagles. It's just that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson wanted to go back to play with the basically the DB coach, Aaron Glenn, who's the defensive coordinator at the Detroit Lions now. So that's why he took that. So they seem to be willing to spend money. But DP, we know that. Guess what, man? Some of that money is now going in Jalen Hurts' pocket. So coming up next, man, we're going to talk about maybe some of the positions because the Philadelphia Eagles have 2 first-round picks, right? And I believe they have a second-round pick and they have a third-round pick, right? So that's 4 should be in the top 100. We're going to talk about how they should possibly allocate some of those resources so that way, they could potentially, because they're going to lose some guys, right? They're not going to be able to pay everybody. That's just how the NFL is structured. So we're going to talk about maybe some key positions to address for this Philadelphia Eagles roster and that they should draft in this upcoming 2023 NFL draft coming up next.
Grand slams, no-hitters, and double plays are back. And there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. I'm telling you right now, you can make your opening day weekend type of picks. Aaron Judge to pick up where he left off with the home run, a pitcher going over on the strikeouts, you name it, they have it. So don't miss your chance to get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked on to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Keith, the draft implications of this contract are big, right? Because anytime you pay your quarterback, it's going to handicap you in a way where you can't go out and be, you just can't go to the mall and buy whatever pair of sneakers you want. You gotta be a little more calculated with it. But it puts more onus on the scouting department, Keith. So this team has 2 first-round picks, like I said, a second. What are some of the draft fits and needs for this team? Because they're gonna have to nail some of these draft picks once this money starts really coming in and hitting in from this contract.
Yeah, so DP, we've been on opposite sides of this, right? With the
boy.
No, but let me finish. Let me finish, man. Let me finish. Of the Bijan Robinson conversation, right? And I've been all about taking him with the number 10 pick, right? And that was because this roster, I feel like is a really good roster, and I feel like the addition of Bijan Robinson just takes it over the top offensively. You figure out what you want to do with it, right?
Facts.
I'm looking at this, and I think that's still true. That remains true. But I'm looking at a player like edge rusher Myles Murphy from Clemson, right? If he's sitting there at number 10, that's one guy I would, and it's not many. Bijan is extremely high on the way I view these prospects, but that's one guy I think I still go with because I'm looking at this edge rusher group. You have Brandon Graham, who's getting up there in age, right? You have Fletcher Cox, who's obviously a defensive tackle, but still, right? He contributes to this defensive line. And then you have Josh Sweat. And then you also have Hassan Reddick, who, they've put him in the right situations. But I look at Brandon Graham and I'm like, you know what? This guy's getting older. I don't want to have to continue to pay an older guy. I'd rather him play 1 year with Myles Murphy and then make the transition. So I'm saying this, that I think they should go after Myles Murphy. And if they decide to get Bijan Robinson, if they could get him in the second round, with their second first-round pick, I'm perfectly fine with that. And then I'm continue to look at positions. Linebacker is a situation. They have Nakobe Dean, Hassan Reddick, and I think Nicholas Morrow, who they signed free agency, I believe. But they lost who did they lose? They lost the linebacker to Chicago.
TJ Edwards, I believe.
Edwards. Yeah. They lost TJ Edwards, right? And so you maybe want to address the linebacker position, but you don't have to address that to the second, third round because I don't foresee any linebackers going in the first round in this draft. Safety, this is a tough safety class also, right? Like I don't see them addressing the safety position in the first round. But if you can get a guy like Jordan Battle, that's a name that continues to just kind of fly under the radar. And I think he's just a solid starter. I think this guy can play football. I think he's a solid starter. I think if they can grab him somewhere in the maybe trade or maneuver the draft board to draft Jordan Battle back into the second round, early third round, I think this guy's a starter in the NFL like immediately as a rookie.
No, I like those names, Keith, and I'm glad you brought up safety because of the fact that losing a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, a guy that was making interceptions and big plays and the attitude he brought to that defense, and Jordan Battle's an interesting name because a lot of people love Brian Branch, but the year prior, Jordan Battle was kind of playing Brian Branch's role. You know what I mean? More
first round guy, right? Like everybody looked at him as the first round guy.
And Nick Saban them said, I need you in the back end. And everybody's like, I don't even know who Jordan Battle is anymore. You know what I mean? They just completely forgot the guy existed. So I think that's a really good name to bring up, Keith. I'm going to tell you, man, Keith, I've been feeling this way for a while. With them sitting at 10, with a lot of smoke around Jalen Carter, I feel like teams in the top 9 have to be smart about this. Like, because what you don't want is for him to fall to 10 and you now give, that the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Carter at the 10th pick to pair up with that defensive line that they have, Fletcher. That rotation, losing Javon Hargrave was a big loss, Keith. But being able to put Jalen Carter in that position, now you pair him back up with Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean, right? But also, like you said, I love the Myles Murphy addition, because they do need to address Ed. Brandon Graham, I believe, is on the last year of his deal. Like he's not going to be there much longer. So you want to go ahead and get another edge defender to put to this team, and really, again, it's going to be more of a situation where he's just kind of rotating in. They may not start him, off the rip, but at least you got a guy with high traits and tools and skills, Keith. But I want to bring up another position, wide receiver. You know what I mean? And not so much not that early, but more so, you think about second round, Keith. Quez Watkins is, to me, he's a specialist. He's a deep ball specialist, explosive, fast guy, but not someone that runs a lot of great routes. And, you saw in the Super Bowl, he didn't track the ball well, which probably would have ended up in a touchdown or just a big play, on that deep pass from Jalen Hurts. So I think looking at the receiver position, he's as a wide receiver 3, potential 2, because at the end of the day, we know when this money kicks in, you already signed A.J. Brown, right? I think they paid Hassan Reddick, right?
Yeah.
You might be in the situation where Devonta Smith is up for a deal and you can't afford to pay him the money that the Slim Reaper is going to require, Keith. So if that turns out to be the case, you might want to go ahead and invest on day 2 in my opinion, because they have the 62nd pick in the draft. They have 4 picks in the top 100. That's crazy enough. Super Bowl team with 4 picks in the top 100 that you can get a Marvin Mims, right? A Josh Downs potentially, right? You look at those type of guys and you add another receiver to this receiver core or tight end. But I definitely think, and our guy, Jahmyr Gibbs, if you get him at the back end of the first round, him or Bijan, I'm not mad at it. But they definitely focus on that D-line. Keith, what about corner real quick? Do you think corner, you brought back Bradbury, they still have Slay?
Yeah, I think they should address the cornerback position because both of these guys, well, Bradbury, I feel as though that contract was a little more easier, right? I think it was mutually, hey, we want to come back. I think Darius Slay, from what it appeared, that it was a little bit of a little tussle, right? Where it was, they had to have some
little tug of war.
It wasn't one of those situations like they say, man, what's understood don't have to be explained. They had to explain some stuff, you know what I'm saying, on both sides, right? So I think that you go, man, this is a deep cornerback draft, cornerback class. So you do potentially look at corner. You can find one, in the back end of the second round, third round, something like that, right? But I want to go back to your point, DP, about the wide receivers. One guy that I think would thrive in this offense, man, would be Michigan State's Jaden Reed. When you talk about a high level 3 to 2-ish, you know what I'm saying? Like he walks that line, and I think what happens is this, that you allow the transition to happen and you put him on the field, you see if he's good enough to be your number 2. So then now you just have to make the decision between Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, whatever that may be, right? But if you can't afford to pay all 3 of those guys, then pay them. But you put Jaden Reed because there is a real skill set there. We've seen it live and in person, right, DP? There's a real skill set there and potential for him being a number 2. But I like his, where he comes in as a number 3, learn the NFL game, and then maybe you're not as pressed to have to pay somebody. So there is, listen, this Philadelphia Eagles roster is still filled out, right? But we know looking future-wise, this is you want to nail on your draft picks. When you spend money and you have to pay the guys that that you drafted, like a Jalen Hurts, things like that, you want to nail on your next year's draft class. So that way, when you can't pay some people, you already have the talent to come. You feel completely comfortable with letting those guys go, man. So I think the Philadelphia Eagles, they're still in a good spot, paying Jalen Hurts, giving him his money. I think it's a good decision. I think it kind of sets the tone going into next year, right? Like we're focused on next year. We're focused on winning games with DP, man. Focused on winning games, man. DP, we have one of our favorite segments coming up. Well, the Philadelphia Eagles just had a little pressure on them. You know what I'm saying? But ain't no pressure like Dames Dudes pressure, baby, where I get to throw rapid fire, hit you with some curveballs, throw some names at you to see if they're a Dames dude or they're not. We finally get to see. And you know what, DP? This is the cornerback edition, man. There's a lot of talk about corners in this class. We're going to see what Dame is with some of these cornerbacks in this class. Coming up next, the Dames Dude segment.
Keith, it's time, man. It's time for one of the best segments in the world right now. Dames Dudes, talk to me. You said cornerbacks. We both love DBs, so what you got for me?
DP, you know me, man. You know I start at the top, man. We go to the
All
top,
right.
baby. We make you stand on it because we had a brief conversation off air, right? But you know me, I like to take those off air conversations and put them on the air for the locked on family, man. Joey Porter Jr., DP.
Mhm.
Joey Porter Jr., DP. Is he a Dames dude or not? Let's talk about it.
Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State is a Dames dudes. He don't get it twisted. He still frustrates me. He still frustrates me with his technique, Keith. He's still raw in a lot of ways, but he has everything you can't teach. 6'3", 6'4", 34, almost 35-inch arms, right? Athletic. It's everything else I could teach the young man. I can get him with OD, my boy Oliver Davis, get him out there with him and have him, in fact, he's actually working with Oliver Davis right now. That's J.C. Horn. He's straight J.C. Horn, Jalen Ramsey, all those guys. So I think he's going to develop, and I think you develop him, you get yourself a CB1 through and through, Keith. So yeah, Joey Porter Jr., JPJ, he's a Dames dude, stamp of approval.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make you stand on it, man. Wanted to make you stand on it. Coming up next, DP, we're gonna go with one of the smaller guys, man. One of the smaller guys, but we have to talk about him. And that's TCU's corner, Travius Hodges Thomason. DP, how you feel about him?
I like THT. I really do.
Is he a damn dude?
Is
Or
he a
is he a
dude? Dames
damn dude?
dudes. Oh man. He is not a Dames dudes, Keith. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? I see some things with him that kind of just it's hard to coach out. He's really grabby at the top of routes, and while he's a good athlete, he is going to be someone that's probably going to be regulated to being a nickel only type of corner. So it's like for me, man, I just looking at him, I'm like, all right, like there's just some footwork issues that I didn't like what I saw on tape. I think I graded him like third round if I remember correctly. So nah, he's not a Dames dudes, Keith.
All right, look, I understand it. I understand it, DP. But listen, man, this is one of my guys. You know, this is a Keats guy. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to see if he's a Dames dude. See, you finally got eyes on him. See how you feel about him. Louisville corner, Keytrell Clark. We never talked about him. DP, how do you feel about him?
Oh, he's a Dames dude. I love this kid, bro. Like, you know what I mean? So for a corner that's not 6'2", I recall watching the Boston College tape, and there's a rep where he runs the alley versus the run, and Boston College has a squatty running back, Pat Garwo, really low center of gravity, and Keytrail just filled the lane with no problem, got low, rolled through the hips, kind of dumped him a little bit, and I saw that swag with him. But I love the footwork, man, the athleticism, the transitions. Guy that can play press, can play zone. I was impressed with this young man. I really like him, Keith. He's a Dames dude. Stamp on him.
Okay, cool. Just making sure, DP, making sure, baby, we on the same page, man. Because I told you this is a hill that I've been on by myself. I was totally by myself. Nobody's talking about Louisville corner, Keytrell Clark, man. Y'all, we're talking to y'all. Y'all go check him out, man. Because this is a guy that may surprise some people if he goes early on in the draft, but extremely talented football player. He's at Louisville and things like that, man. So he's flying under the radar right now. But DP, man, I have another name for you, man. I want to get into Maryland cornerback Deontay Banks. Is he a Dames dude or not? How you feel about him?
Yeah, he's a Dames dude, Keith. You know me. I'm a press man specialist. I love man-to-man coverage. I love to get up on the line of scrimmage and reroute and harass receivers, and he does that, Keith. Not only that, he battles at the catch point, explosive. A young man that knows that I can run with almost anyone, which we saw at the combine with his raw testing, Keith. So I think this is a pure press man corner. You could drop him off into some cover 3, cover 4, where he's got the deep routes or whatnot. But I think man to man, you just let him continue to develop his technique, his planning, his footwork, and everything else, Keith, and you got yourself a stud. Dames Stampe of Approval.
All right, man, we're gonna keep this thing moving, man. We have another undersized corner, right? That's rather polarizing. Everybody talks about in this draft. We're going with Utah cornerback Clark Phillips. DP, is he a Dames dude or not?
I like Clark a lot. Clark is definitely he's a Dames dude, Keith. I looked at him and I saw a kid with ball skills, instincts. He's got that grit to him.
I don't want to cut you off, but listen. Clark Phillips is a Dames dude, and Travis Hodges Thomason is not. We want to just make sure
Yes.
that we have
Yeah,
that.
this is
Because
true.
at first I thought you was discriminating against, the
Nah,
5'9"
nah.
and other corners. Okay, but
Short Kings stick together. All right, Short Kings stick together. I'm right there with him. Nah, I like him. I feel like he's a little bit cleaner than THT. I think THT is still a good player, but with Clark, the ball skills, the ability to take, to really take the ball away. Not only that, but also return the ball, and get to the paint, get to the end zone. Man, I just love what he brings. I think he could. I'm not saying live on the outside, but I think you could be a little bit more comfortable trying him outside depending on the matchup than I felt about THT. But I like both players, but he's definitely a Dames dude. Let me get that stamp.
All right, cool. We're going to finish this up, man. On the West Coast, we're going with Stanford's cornerback, Caillou Blue Kelly, man. A guy that we've been up and down on, right? And I want to know how you feel about him. We got to put it on wax, put it on air, talk to our family, man. So how do you feel about Caillou Blue Kelly as far as being a Dames dude?
Caillou Blue Kelly is not a Dames dude, Keith. I like him. I do. I was high on him coming out of the summer, but there is some rigidness in the hips, some transitional and rotational, issues there where he's like, man, Jake Bobo to me, and I told you, Jake Bobo from UCLA looks like a tight end, and there's times on tape where Jake Bobo's stacking him, and I'm concerned about the long speed. I'm concerned about the transitions. I think he may be better off in zone, in my opinion, Keith. I saw him; he looked great at the Senior Bowl, especially playing his zone, being able to get to his landmarks, playing matching patterns, and being able to read and play the half man technique between like smash concepts and stuff like that, where he's playing between the low and the high route. And you saw him, take the ball away, but just the rotational issues and rigidness and they give me some concern, Keith, against some of all these twitchy receivers in the NFL, guys who specialize with footwork to work, your base. I'm a little concerned, so he's not a Dames dude.
All right, cool. Look, that wrap up our 5, man. That wrap up the 5 Dames dudes. Like we said, we are DP? I think 11, 12 days out from the draft. We're
10
days right there from the draft, man. It's right around the corner. So it's exciting to be able to go through this cornerback class. And we're going through this cornerback class the rest of this week because it's been a very polarizing cornerback class. And we have our stock up, stock down segments, DP. And there's a cornerback that I watched over the weekend that we have to talk about, man. Somebody we have to talk about that, I may not be as high on.
Ooh, okay. Nice little teaser there. I like that, Keith. I like it. So, guys, as always, man, we appreciate all the love and support. We always tell you guys, thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen every day for the everydayers. Like Keith just teased, talking about some more corners tomorrow, someone he's not as high on. But listen, go subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it's available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today. And listen, for Twitter, you can find Keith at The Talent Code. Find me, Damian Parson, DP_NFL. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.